Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome, everyone. Scugog is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. Today, we acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic Indigenous connection to this land and recognize the contributions First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, our province, and country as a whole. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Are there any announcements from Council? Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last week I said it would be my last plug for comedy night, but tonight I would just like to thank everyone who attended. It was an excellent night, almost a sold-out crowd, and we're very optimistic that our goal for fundraising was reached. So thank you to those who attended and to those that helped spread the word. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. It was a fun night. Any other announcements from Council? Councillor McDougall?
Yes, I'd just like to make an announcement again that the coldest night of the year, or coldest night of the year 2020 is happening, no, it's not tonight actually, Jana. It's happening on February 22nd, and it starts at the Port Perry United Church. I don't have the exact time in front of me, but it supports North House, which is for housing and homelessness initiatives in North Durham.
I believe it's 5 o'clock it's starting. I haven't got the announcement in front of me, but
Sorry, I think you're right, but I can't confirm. It does have a Facebook page, and you can also get to it through the North House website.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Keysebring?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In Nestleton, February 19th from 10 to 3, and also February 26th, there's going to be a free interactive workshop called Growing Your Farm Profits, and there's also a one-to-one review meeting. So it's an opportunity for people who are interested in a farm business coming to a free 2-day workshop. So I just want to let people know about that.
Thank you. Anyone else? I got a couple. The pond hockey was this weekend, and there were 9 rinks, and it was very well attended. It was bitter cold, as you all will remember. They presented checks to the Jennifer Ashley Foundation and to Overt, $7,500 each. And also John Mackey, our marina operator, was recognized for all of his assistance in developing the rinks over the past number of years. So that was very well deserved for John Mackey. And also on the 13th, just a reminder, and Director Heritage, can you tell me how or Nicola or somebody can tell us how are the workshops filling up for February the 13th on the My Waterfront project?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The latest figures I have is that the first workshop is completely full, and that's at 1 o'clock. The next one's at 3:30, and as far as I know, there's still some room there, as well as the one in the evening.
As well as the evening? There's
The evening session.
Okay, that's great. So everybody, for the listening audience, be sure and sign up, register to come to one of those workshops to help with the design of the future of the waterfront here in Port Perry. Any other announcements? Oh, Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This weekend, as everyone knows, is Family Day weekend, and our Scugog Recreation Department is hosting an amazing family fun or passport to family fun at the arena, running from 10 to 1. It's a great event. It's free to all of our residents, or it's free to attend, and there's a lot of activities for the young ones.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything from staff? Director Valentin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a reminder that our budget open house for our operating budget will be next Wednesday, February 19th, here in Council Chambers at 6 o'clock. I'll be doing the presentation that was brought forward this morning or this afternoon at 1 o'clock. But also in attendance will be the Region of Durham, who will be providing an overview of their budget, and we will be live streaming the event.
So
you.
that's great, and people can make their comments and ask their questions through the live streaming process,
Right.
and
So
it'll be
through-
answered live.
Correct. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Any other announcements from staff? Seeing none, any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the nature thereof? Councillor McDougall?
I'd like to declare on report number 9.2.1, potential client to do some plans for them.
Okay, thank you. Is there any others? Okay, thank you very much. We're now at a portion of the agenda where we have a public meeting. This portion of the meeting has been set aside for a public meeting held under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an application for a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by EcoView Consulting Services, Inc. on behalf of Port Perry Veterinary Services for the property located at 1589 King Street. The purpose of this public meeting is to obtain the views and comments of the public. No decision will be made at this public meeting. It is important that the public express their views, either in person or in writing, prior to decisions being made by the Council of the Township of Scugog. Everyone present has the opportunity to speak. Please be considerate of the acknowledged speaker by refraining from side conversations. While you may agree or disagree with the speaker, please refrain from audible responses and respect each speaker. To ensure that all those present who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, speakers should limit their comments to 5 minutes and keep comments as brief and to the point as possible. Prior to speaking, please clearly state and spell your name and provide your property address for records purposes. You are encouraged to provide your comments in writing so that staff can ensure that they are accurately recorded and appropriately considered. If you do not speak at this public meeting or provide written comments before council makes a decision on this application, you may not be entitled to appeal council's decision or be added as a party to a hearing by the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT for short, unless the tribunal determines there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you would like to be notified of the decision on these matters, please provide written notice of your desire to receive notice. The notice of this public meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. I will now ask Nicola Alston to provide information regarding the application and an overview of the staff information report included in this agenda. Ms. Alston, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this public meeting is to present the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and obtain comments from council and the public. An application for a zoning bylaw amendment was received from EcoView Consulting Services, Inc. on behalf of Port Perry Veterinary Services for the property located at 1589 King Street in Prince Albert. The application was deemed complete on December 10th, 2019. I will provide a brief overview of the application, and the applicant's planning consultant and the applicants are also in attendance to answer any questions you may have. The purpose of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands from neighborhood commercial, exception 5 zone, to neighborhood commercial with another exception zone, to permit a business, professional, or administrative office and a veterinary clinic, and to also recognize the existing lot area, frontage, and setback deficiencies. Oops. The subject property is located in Prince Albert and is designated residential in the township's official plan. Permitted uses include local commercial uses that serve the needs of the surrounding residential areas, which include small-scale retail uses, convenience stores, services, and commercial and personal uses intended to meet the day-to-day needs of the residents. The property is currently zoned neighborhood commercial, exception 5. This exception permits a motor vehicle body shop as the only permitted commercial use. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is intended to apply a new site-specific exception to the C1 zone on the property to permit a business, professional, or administrative office and a veterinary clinic, and to also recognize existing lot area, frontage, and setback deficiencies. Port Perry Veterinary Services are a large animal veterinarian. serving Durham region and surrounding areas. The proposed land use will include storage of supplies, lab work, and animal prescription drug sales to clients. There is no intention for animals to be treated on this site, as all veterinary appointments are in the form of farm calls for large animals. No objections or concerns were identified by township staff or any external agency. The region of Durham, to note, under their provincial delegated responsibilities, have reviewed the site for potential site contamination through the submitted Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments. The Phase 2 ESA results showed that the soil samples and monitoring wells are below the allowable concentrations and that the property is suitable for commercial development. The ESA also recommended that no further study would be required. Notice of the public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, with notice provided to all property owners within 120 meters of the property, and was advertised in the local newspapers and also posted on the township's website. A sign has also been placed on the property to notify the public of the application. A future staff report will include an analysis of any comments received tonight, together with any subsequent written comments, and make recommendation on the application. Madam Mayor, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Very good. Questions for Ms. Olson? Councillor Kiesebrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering, has the Reliance letter since been signed by the owner? Initially, it was by an authorized person, but just not the owner of the property?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, it has been.
Further questions? Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With respect to the bylaw requirements and the proposed minimum lot frontages and interior side yards, so on and so forth, is there relief being sought for some of this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, no, this is for existing conditions. There is no proposal to enlarge the facility, just interior renovations.
So when I read the bylaw requirement is 10, and then I read the proposed is 1, what does that mean, really?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, this is the existing condition. So the existing building as it stands currently, which will remain, is 4.8 meters.
Okay.
Sort of.
Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just want to make sure I understand that there will be no animals treated on site. There will be a lab, but there will be no animals treated on site because the nature of this business has them go, they actually leave the premises and go to farms. They don't treat any of the animals. So they have a lab, but they don't treat labs per se.
Or cows?
Yeah, or-
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that is correct. All their calls are off-site to their large farm animal veterinarians.
Thank you.
Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for this report. I've actually been waiting for this to come to council. The previous owner contacted me back in April with his concerns for this potentially not going through. And I can speak to the fact of when I was knocking on doors at the election time that having a mechanic in an urban neighborhood certainly wasn't the most desirable of neighbor, though the previous owner was certainly a great neighbor. But this new proposed change of usage would definitely be very, very, I'm sure, well received by its neighbors. So I'm very, very glad that we are finally able to discuss this.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this application? Please proceed to the microphone if there's anyone that wishes to, did I see your hand, sir? No? Okay. Anyone wish to speak to this application, please come forward. Please state your name and municipal address for the record. Up here is fine.
Madam Mayor. Dwayne Darlington. I have the property directly across from the present body shop. My concern for what's proposed is no concern at all. It sounds great. My other concern is, would this at some time digress and go back to a body shop or some kind of vehicle restoration in that particular area?
Ms. Alston, can you answer that question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The site exception that permits the motor vehicle body shop will be removed. And so the new site exception will only permit the office uses that they are proposing. Thank you.
Our recording secretary, did you get the name and address of this gentleman? Not the address, oh, sorry, your address?
1590 King Street, Prince Albert.
Thank you. Councilor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And if Mr. Darlington is agreeable, I also have a correspondence from yourself that I could submit on his behalf in support of this application.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to say?
Nope.
Nope. And I thought I recognized you. It's good to see you again. I haven't seen you for a long time.
Thank you very much.
Any other speakers? Please come forward. State your name and your municipal address.
Yeah. My name is Bob Horton, 1572 King Street, and on behalf of my wife and myself, we are in full favor of this and see no issues.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this application? Okay, seeing none, thank you for attending and providing your input into this statutory public information meeting. This concludes this portion of the meeting. Thank you very much. With the consent of council, we'll move to the report on page 31. That's report number 9.2.1. And I'm looking for a mover, please, that this report entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application Z09 2019, R. Shanahan and A. Doherty, Port Perry Veterinary Services, 1589 King Street, Part Lot 16, Concession 5, now 40R-1969, Part 1, Ward 2, information report be received, and that staff report back to council with a recommendation on this application at the earliest opportunity. Councilor Guido? And seconder, Councilor Kiesebrink. Questions or comments? Although, oh, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. And the question isn't to ask you to repeat the name of the report. What is the earliest convenience? What kind of time frame do we have that we can report back to the applicants?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Likely sometime in March, we would be able to do that.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Good news. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Alston. Thank you to members of the public. Pardon? Oh, if you would like to leave, we don't mind. I'm sure that you would be riveted with our business tonight, but maybe not. Thank you for coming. We now move to our consent agenda. And I have two polls so far, 9.3.1 and 9.3.2. 9.3.1. You pulled 9.2.1, Councillor McDougall, for your declaration of interest. And are there any others? 3.1 and 3.2. 3.1 and 3.2. Wilma, who's this? I don't know who that is. Oh, yes, okay. On all, oh, Councilor Ross?
Pardon me, Madam Mayor, there's just, on 9.2.3, there's just a resolution here. I'm not sure if it needs an amendment and it needs to be pulled. Yes,
Okay,
if we could please
we'll pull that one then.
Thank you.
9.2.3. Okay. On all the others, motion to approve the recommendation. Counselor Kiesebrink, Counselor Watton. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. We will now move to 9.2.1, and Counselor McDougall. I beg your pardon? We've just dealt with that one. Yes, sorry. Okay. You declared a conflict on that. Thank you. 9.2.3, Portview Road Rehabilitation Contract, and I'll call on Counselor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must admit, I am very excited to see this up and in front of us at this point. This has been long awaited, so thank you very much for getting this done and making it happen. I know the people on Portview, they don't know all that this is happening tonight, but the few I've talked to are very excited about this. So my understanding is that there's
A change to the recommendation.
an amendment that has to be
To the
made.
recommendation. I think you can make the recommendation including the change, and I'll ask on Director Coleman to outline what that is. Right now, the Portview Rehabilitation Contract Award be received, and number two, that the contract for Portview Road Rehabilitation in the amount of $209,653.15, including HST, be awarded to Nationwide Paving. And did you have an additional part to that recommendation, Councillor Coleman, or Director Coleman?
Yes, just a clerical thing. It's, if we need the contingency, it's slightly over budget by $7,000, $7,598.30. So we just need a recommendation that says that we can move the funds from the roads and other infrastructure reserve to this account.
Okay, so Councillor Ross, you're making that recommendation with that addition?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank
Okay,
you.
moving that. Seconder, Councillor McDougall. Questions or comments on the report? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And now we have 9.3.1, which is on page 69. And it's regarding Emerald Ash Borer. And Councillor Kiesebrink. Page 69.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This letter was brought forward by the municipality of Clarington, their Agricultural Advisory Committee, and the concerns that they articulate, the significant cost, the working long-term strategy, the impact for private landowners, but especially for farmers. Our Ontario forests, there are so many, are comprised of so many ash trees. And as it says on the Natural Resources Canada website, that the loss of the ash trees, it's not just that. After an infestation, the remaining beetles can kill new growth and jeopardize forest recovery and nutrient cycling. So it is a really serious concern, and the costs of, there's so many dead trees, the costs of removing them are extensive. So they're asking for some assistance and for the province to look at this. I think it would behoove us as well as a township to echo their concerns and to pass that along.
So are you making a motion to support the recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so I'm suggesting that correspondence number 25-20 received from the municipality of Clarington regarding Emerald Ash Borer funding assistance be received and endorsed. Moved by Councillor Kiesebrink, seconded. Councillor Watton, questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. The next report is 9.3.2, actually it's correspondence. Councillor Watton, it's on page 71.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and as part of your agenda, you received the Durham Region Climate Change Emergency Declaration. I asked for this to be put into our agenda so that we could give consideration to endorsing a resolution that I have. And if I may, I'd just like to read it and then I'll
Please do.
speak further to it if necessary. And I think you all have a copy of it. So it's, whereas on January 29th, 2020, Regional Council endorsed a Durham Region Climate Change Emergency Declaration, and whereas Regional Council recognizes the need to reduce overall emissions in Durham Region, as well as continue to prepare for Durham Region's future climate, and whereas Regional Council has directed regional staff to, among other matters, work with senior levels of government to accelerate initiatives to meet the urgency of climate change and provide resources for municipalities and the public to reduce emissions and build resilience to climate impacts. And whereas on September 25th, 2017, the Township of Scugog Council passed a resolution approving in principle the Durham Community Climate Adaptation Plan, subject to budgetary consideration and the availability of staffing resources. And whereas the Township of Scugog supports the region's Community Energy Plan, and whereas the Township of Scugog Strategic Plan includes a strategic direction for the natural environment that, among other matters, promotes sustainability, low impact, and green development. And whereas the Township of Scugog has undertaken and plans to move forward with initiatives to reduce emissions such as LED streetlight conversion, electric vehicle charging stations, the Blackstock Community Center expansion, net zero building design, active transportation plan, and others, apply climate change principles to infrastructure design, Line 8 Bridge, Lake Scugog Enhancement Project, stormwater management, pond for employment lands, and implement recycling efforts, such as recycling expansion and reduction in single-use plastics. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the township fully supports the region's efforts to reduce its carbon footprint by providing resources to municipalities and the public to decrease emissions and build resiliency to climate impacts, and that the township continue to move forward with initiatives to reduce emissions and apply climate change principles to infrastructure design, subject to budgetary constraints and staff resources, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Region of Durham, Kawartha Conservation, Lake Simcoe Conservation, and Central Lake Ontario Conservation for their information. That's my resolution, Madam Mayor. If I could have a seconder.
Thank you. A seconder, Councillor McDougall. Any questions or comments? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Watton, I came prepared tonight for a fight a bit about climate emergency. And I hadn't read your declaration until having had a seat. So I must say that I was expecting a request for the township to declare an emergency or to support the emergency that was declared by the region. My understanding is that in your resolved, the actionable items here from us does not include that we are not recognizing the emergency or their stated emergency declaration, but instead we're supporting their efforts to reduce.
My intent, Councillor, is yes, to support the region's efforts and to also, as we move forward with any projects, to consider this as a lens to look towards development of these projects and so on. Respecting that, you know, our resources are very limited, but I think we've already made great strides, and I just want to keep it, you know, move forward and respect the fact that there is climate change prevalent all around us, and we should try and do what we can for it.
If I may just finish through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that. I think that's a very good statement. I was very concerned with the word emergency being used in this platform. I won't go on by it. It's something very passionate about, but I find that climate change is too important to be throwing the words emergency declaration around when I don't think it's the right word for what we're dealing with. Let me be clear that climate change is a very real thing and something that we need to, as a township, take ownership of, but not in the way that the region has with declaring an emergency. I'll leave it at that because I don't think that that's up for debate.
And I agree. Just to further, this conversation was also held at the region about emergency, not emergency. I think part of it is the climate, so to speak, of how it is being addressed across the country. And it's not, you know, it's not necessarily what we perceive as an emergency, but the phrase of the day, so to speak, is the climate change emergency. And that's, you know, part of, I think, how it was described at the region as well.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor McDougall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing this forward, Wilma. I'm gonna hold up my bicycle helmet as Mayor hangs her head, but
I wondered
think
why you
it's-
brought it in here.
It's not why I brought it in here, it's just a convenient spot to keep it. I'd like to say that I ride my bicycle for the environment, but I actually ride it for health and the environment and everything, and I think it's, the environment is all too important, and I think it's the individual decisions that we make every single day, whether it be to ride our bicycle or the encouragement I had earlier today in looking at our budget, and you see the reduced utilities costs to the municipality, but those reduced utility costs to the municipality means a lower carbon footprint for all of us. So I appreciate what this municipality does on the tight budgets that we have, and I fully support this effort, and I thank everybody for trying their best.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Brown?
Sure, Madam Mayor, I'm with Councillor Ross on the use of the term emergency, and I think you have to tread very carefully when you use emergency as regards climate change in this particular instance. And I agree with Councillor Watton's approach, and that I don't know if you could find a different word that would be more applicable, but if it's emergency, then we understand the context, so be it.
It's certainly a crisis that we're dealing with. You know, that time is of the essence, that we have to deal with this now. But certainly if we don't, probably 30 years from now, we will be in trouble. So maybe even before that. So anyway, a crisis for sure. I do appreciate the approach that was that you took, Councillor Watton, on this, and certainly we all have to do our part individually. And as a township, we all have to do our part. So that's what'll make a difference. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Well done. We are now, we've done the bylaws too, and now we are at the point where we are looking for a motion to confirm the actions. Oh, another notice of motion. I'm sorry. I just lost my agenda page here, so. I lost my agenda page. So we do have the next, there we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. You're really doing your job. Okay, we have a notice of motion by Councillor Kiesebrink. Councillor Kiesebrink, would you like to make your motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The motion is, whereas the provincial government has introduced Bill 156, Security from Trespass and Protecting Food Safety Act 2019, and whereas Scugog Farms are places of business where we grow and produce food, raise animals, and make our living, and whereas Scugog Farms are also private homes where private citizens have expectation that people cannot enter their homes without permission, and whereas Ontario farms have come under increasing threat from trespassers and activists who illegally enter property, barn, and buildings, trespassing under false pretenses to gain entry, seizing private property, threatening the health and safety of farms, employees, livestock, and crops, and whereas existing laws are not doing enough to protect farms and homes from the risk of unwarranted trespassers and activists, and whereas all animal production is governed by strict code of practice, and Ontario livestock farmers are required to satisfy standards of care requirements outlined under national codes of practice, which ensure animal health, safety, and welfare are promoted and maintained. And whereas Bill 156, Security from Trespass and Protecting Food Safety Act, strikes a balance to protect farms while also recognizing a citizen's right to protest. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Scugog supports Bill 156, Security from Trespass and Protecting Food Safety Act, and that a copy of this resolution be sent, should I read all the names? Yes. To Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Ernie Hardeman, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, Honourable Sylvia Jones, Solicitor General of Ontario, Honourable Doug Downey, Attorney General of Ontario, Lindsay Park, Member of Provincial Parliament, Durham, Randy Petapis, and Toby Barrett, Parliamentary Assistants to the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, John Van Hoff, Deputy Leader, Official Opposition, Critic, Agriculture and Food, Rural Development, Sarah Singh, Deputy Leader, Official Opposition, the Region of Durham, and all municipalities within Durham Region. To speak to this,
I'll get a
Madam...
seconder first, and that's
sorry.
Councillor Ross. You seconded this? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. To speak to this, Madam Mayor, this past September 25th, 2019, there was a roundtable agricultural discussion in Nestleton in Ward 4 with the Honourable Ernie Hardeman, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, as well as MPP Lindsay Park present. And around the table and in the room was just one story after another with concerns expressed from our local farming community about their safety and the safety of our food. Also, there were discussion about the key significance of agriculture in Durham region. And I think that there are some disconnects in the court system that would allow all the participating parties in this area to work together. And I think that this bill attempts to do that. We were asked to show our support by the Durham Federation of Agriculture, and having been there and heard these concerns, and also having received this request, I'm bringing this forward. I really think that it's important to recognize that we do want to support food safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keysbrink. Are there questions or comments on this motion? Seeing none, well done. These farms are also people's homes, and people are trespassing on their private property in their homes. So, well done in this notice of motion. I'm sure everybody will support it. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Now I'm looking for a motion for confirming bylaw, confirm the proceedings of tonight's meeting. Councillor Brown, Councillor Ross, questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Guido, Councillor Keysbrink, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Yeah, lost my agenda.
That's what you call.
40 minutes.
People can do that by experience.
Even when I lose my agenda?
Oh, that's not.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of papers here. That's perfect.